Well, by now we're at, believe it or not, almost 60% of the course is done because those first two modules were a little bit longer than the last two activity modules. The last module, the fifth module, is the one you're going to do going to be the basis of your project, and that's probably going to take the most time. So what we're going to look at first on this tape, which goes with module 3, is your kind of response to the structure of the way in which Morgan handles the combination of the protege-mentor relationship. And then we'll be talking about the function of the internship proper in module 4. Okay, so now that you've read the expectations of the module, uh, what sort of reaction can you put in your journal regarding has the relationship that between you as protege and your mentor, has it evolved in the way that you thought it would? And that's a good opportunity for you to say a little bit about your expectations, because if you remember all the way back to module 1, one of the things you were supposed to set up was expectations that you had for yourself when you went through the experience. And so that'd be the first thing. The second thing that I'd like to see some reaction to, which hopefully will benefit you, but also benefit me when I do this again. Steve Brookfield is a kind of a mentor for me. While he was at Columbia, I went to almost every seminar I could get to that he put on. He was doing a lot of traveling in the lower New York area and quite a bit up at Harford County in Maryland, because he had a number of his Columbia graduate students at Harford Community College. So I saw him perform. And he sees the internship as being a process of teaching and learning. It's almost a symbiotic on both sides. And my interest would be to see, do you see what you've had thus far as first a learning experience for you? But then, have you been able to observe some things that you've done that your mentor has felt will make him or her more successful as they attempt to work not only with perhaps other proteges, but also with members of their staff? The next thing we're going to look at are the factors that most people who write about internships talk about as essential to the experience. The first, of course, is confidentiality, and the second is trust. The third, they describe it as understanding. Now, from my experience, understanding really goes a little bit beyond understanding, and it's more like insight. Have the two of you been able to develop the kind of rapport where something that your mentor would say triggers an insight that will expand or make better what you've been doing for the institution that's hosting you? And has your mentor, from some things that you've said, seen ways that can improve the way the role that individual occupies is being performed? That goes back into the thing with Brookfield's teaching and learning, is that being what the mentoring experience is really all about. The other thing that I found very useful, you've seen it, it's a pie chart. It's the cycle of mentoring. And what I was going to ask you to do was, now, as I said, now that you're almost 60% through the course, look carefully, if you would, please, at that pie chart, at the way that thing revolves, and decide where you are currently. And if you can, identify points at which you left cycle 1, cycle 2, so forth. You may want to say a little bit at the very end. I'm not going to have YouTube on module 5. So if you remember and you see that, you could say something about how the project impacted how you were in the cycle of mentoring. That'd be very helpful. And here again, what I'd like you to do is, of course, write in the journal. Okay, the other thing I think that's important is the whole idea that your mentor has certain roles to play: guide, challenger, and I said role, so it's kind of frustrating to say guide, challenger, and I guess I would leave off the word role again, but that's what it is, and model. Do you see and can you share some examples in your journal so that I can get some insight? Nobody said that the liaison from the university can't learn something from this experience as well as you do. Okay, now the thing that I'm really interested in seeing is it's concluded, they don't attribute this to anybody, but if it fits well into the work or some of the earlier thinkers about how certain kinds of leadership followership, models worked. That talked about the guiding and facilitative style. Now, if we put one more word in there, if we put one more word in there, if we put reflection, if we talked about guiding, reflection, and then facilitation, you'd be looking very much at the work done by John Dewey. And I also might add that James McGregor Burns. Recently I had a presentation working with one of the doctoral graduates from our program who is currently working for the Indian government, trying to help them set up a series of what they're calling community colleges. They're probably more like technical institutes. But she's basing this on people like Bernard Bass, whom you've studied, James McGregor Burns, and of course I threw in Dewey. And we had a very successful presentation. And it's around the guiding, reflecting, and then facilitative style. And I think you can get something out of that if you look at how the preceding questions I've asked, that as I said, we started this with talking about interaction, human interaction, where you became something more than just two people interacting. You actually became the old geometric phrase, you were giving and taking from each other. So the old geometric axiom, as I said, of the whole being greater than the sum of its parts. Okay, I've gone on pretty far in this one. Why don't we say that you now, as you reflect back on this, you will be able to put these things in your journal, and perhaps in kind of the synthesis part of your project, 2 modules from now, you'd be able to say a little bit more about how that personal aspect worked out. So, thank you.